Hi, everyone. Welcome to June. Sorry for the delay. This month we are talking about interviewing decks. And I tried coming up with like all these different, titles for this event. And one of them was, are you annoyed with your deck? And the other one was, is your deck annoyed with you? Those were kind of my favorite, but I think that I ended up with just interviewing decks so people understood what it was about. I personally don't interview decks. And Anne Marie, hello.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, your camera's off. You and Dee have cameras off. We can't.
Hold on a second.
So anyway, hi, Yvonne. Nice to see you.
Hi, Yvonne. Hi, Kate.
Hello, Anne Marie.
So anyway, we're talking about interviewing decks. I mean, should you even bother interviewing a deck? I mean, that was kind of my question. Is it even worth doing? I don't typically interview decks. For me personally, I prefer to, I pull out the cards when I get a new deck. And the first thing I go through is I count them. I lay them out in elements and make sure that everything is there, because I have literally had decks, 77 cards. And always, only once it happened, and the manufacturer was more than happy to send me the 78th, but I kind of count them, and I like to look at the cards, and I have the favorite ones I look at, the favorite cards. What does the death card look at? What is the, what does the magician card look like? And then I do a reading, and if I don't like the feel, then I put it in with my other 49 decks, and I just don't ever put it out. That's that. But I'm kind of wondering what everybody else does. And Dee, I know you're big on interviewing decks.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, what are your favorite questions, or what do you like to do with it?
Well, my first thing that I actually like to ask my deck after I go through every card and look at it and see if I spot anything on it, just to get the feel of it, is I ask it to tell me about itself. Do you have any specific characteristics? How do you want to work with me? Just anything, strength. What do you want? What do you want? And I'll kind of line it up and say, I'll do probably 6 questions, depending upon what the deck kind of throws at me right away. But I ask it and line the cards up one at a time. What is your strengths? What do you want me to know about you? That's 2. Do you have any limits? 3. What are you here to teach me? That's 4. What will I learn from you? 5. And do you want to work with me? It's amazing. Do you want to work with me? And you'll be surprised what that card flies out with.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. How about you, Yvonne? Do you do any playing with interviewing decks, or?
It's an interesting question. And when you posed that at first, I was like, interviewing the deck. Well, if you mean choosing the deck and working with the deck, then here's what I have to offer. It's like shopping for shoes, okay? Just because they're all pretty doesn't mean they're all gonna fit. Okay. So I think that, my advice would be go into a store or online or whatever and look at all the decks, and whatever deck jumps out at you, there's something about that deck. Now, I have bought plenty of decks, and I've had decks where it's like, oh, I love it. And then I spread it out, and there's maybe 2 or 3 cards, and I'm like, ew, I don't like that card. So I put them aside, but I come back to it later. And then I'll just lay out all the cards, and I'll look at the cards, and I'll have like a kind of a conversation with the cards. I'll just look at them and see, what is it about that card that I don't like, and why? Is it just me, or is it the card? And so, you know what I mean? And so, and I've had decks that I just said, okay, I'm not working with this deck because I don't like it. And I've come back to them, and I've looked at them, and I'm thinking, why didn't I like it? Maybe I wasn't ready to accept whatever message that card had for me.
That's
So, I mean, you know, I think it's a very individual thing. And I think that, you know, having multitude of cards is, you know, it's a choice, right?
yeah.
And my advice for people who decide that, okay, I just definitely hate this deck, or I just cannot work with this deck, have a yard sale or
I've always,
gift it.
yeah, I'm a hoarder. You know, I've got 49 decks now. It's ridiculous. I've got most, not all, but most of them with me in this silly little motor home, right? It's like my husband's like, when are you going to get rid of some of your cards and rocks? He's, but
Well,
I don't know. It's
well, and
almost
there's
like I'm afraid to get rid of them. It's like I'm afraid that I'm going to be sorry later or something. You know, it's I don't know what it is. How about you?
and
How about you, Kate? What are you doing? That?
I never really thought about it as interviewing, but every deck that comes in, of course, I have a collection of tarot decks. Not all are used, but when a time a new deck comes into the house, I mean, like you, I look at the art. I also read the little white book or whatever the version of that is, because I do buy decks from around the world. And so quite often their interpretation or understanding of the deck will be, or the card meanings will be the same, but slightly nuanced. So I kind of like, because the way I kind of rationalize it in my own mind is that that's the deck's understanding of what this card is. And so I kind of pay attention to that. I also like to take a look as to whether or not the deck wants to be read in reversals or not. And then we have a conversation when I'm doing the initial shuffling, which of course takes a long process of time because everything has been very neatly ordered. You know, I just kind of explain to where it is, right? Hi, you're in a house. My husband's pretty cool with tarot cards. The cats are good and they won't bother you. And there's 140 other tarot decks here, and you should be able to find some friends. And they just kind of go through. And then, like Dee was saying, that whole idea of how can we work together, or what do you like to work with? My One World Tarot here, like, it loves doing political tarot, right? It really was cut out for that. And but if I'm in a bad mood, I would never use my trash pandas for that, because it doesn't do politics. Thank you very much. Right? So it's kind of having that sense of what the deck likes doing. And like Dee was saying, you know, do you want to work with me? And sometimes I just get a not right now, thank you. I've had a long journey. I've been in a warehouse for a long time. I like to put my feet up.
You know, it's kind of silly because I'm thinking, gosh, what can I add to this discussion? Because I just, it's not typical for me to interview a deck. But at the same time, when you say, I mean, I do 3 kinds of readings. I mean, I do myself, right? I do have some reflective readings that I do. I don't do a lot of it. I really feel like I'm too close to my own subjects and would prefer to have somebody else read me. But and usually it's Dee. Hey Dee, we can see you now. I read at fairs and festivals. So I read for other people. I also do online readings, but I really, it depending on the question, I mean, and the environment, it's usually trial and error. I've just learned that certain decks just don't want to, you know, they don't want to be clear, or I feel more like, you know, spirit just cannot get through to me with certain decks, you know, at certain times. So I like, I use, like, you know, I talk about the Everyday Witch and the Classic Tarot by Barbara Moore are the 2 that I take to all. They're the plainest, most boring decks I've got, but yet they are everyday and they love being read. They love, you know, other people. They really do. So they're great for reading. And with all the other beautiful, amazing decks I have, those are the ones that tend to speak the most. And if I need something really heavy or serious, I use Osho Zen. You cannot do a light reading with Osho Zen. It just, it wants to go deep. And so it's kind of interesting that way. Hey, Anna Marie. Hi. What do you
Okay. I generally start off by buying a deck that someone has recommended big time. I started off with the Rider-Waite's, and my favorite Rider-Waite is the Radiant Rider-Waite or the Universal. The Radiant, I love the color. I love they're vibrant, and for some reason I keep coming back to that. But in the meantime, then someone comes up with this great idea online and said, got to have that one. I remember buying Ciro Marchetti.
Yeah.
Ciro Marchetti,
Ciro
the Gilded Royale. Used to read that for relationship readings, but now I don't. I haven't used that in a while. But anyway, I don't interview a deck. What I do is I go through all the cards, look at, see how I feel about them. Do I like the look of them? Do I like the colors mainly, or do I like the theme of it? Do I like what it's looking like generally? Does it feel comfortable? And then I might do a 3-card reading. Just a trial 3-card reading. And if I find I'm getting a nice result with that, then I stay going with the deck. That's grand, you're welcome. But I don't talk to the deck really, even though I'm saying you're welcome. I don't talk. I just say to myself, glad I got that. That's nice. And back I go. And another thing, just while I'm talking about decks, Lynn made a comment once about when she's reading, you're reading some of these lovely decks. I started learning with the RWS Universal, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what deck I'm using, when I get, say, the 8 of Swords, into my mind comes the picture of the 8 of Swords.
Yep.
Into my mind comes the 10 of Swords, or whatever I'm reading. My mind automatically translates it back into that before I start talking. So I'm beginning to wonder, what's the point? Why not stick with the one you learned? Why not stick with the Universal Rider-Waite-Smith instead of trying to translate these decks back that you just like the pictures of them?
Well, there's so many.
That's where my money.
Don't you think?
That's where my money is at the moment.
Yeah, makes sense. So I found something in my research that I thought was really interesting that you guys might find interesting. When you're working with a new deck, it talked about, I read this article and it talked about snap a picture of your spread and whatever, interview spread that you have, or draw a diagram, like in a composition book, grab a composition book just for, they're so cheap, and grab one just for deck interviews. And then like have a diagram that you draw on there, and then interview all of your decks. Now that may take a while for you, Kate, with 140 decks, but
actually I've got a binder.
Do you? Well, see,
with my deck interviews in it.
And then it says draw a diagram, and then interview all the decks, and then go back and analyze the differences from one deck to another, because once you interview them and see what cards come up, it might be real interesting to see how different decks answer the same question, in a different way with a different card. Or have a friend do the same spread and then with the same deck, and then compare the answers that you get, because that's going to show how much it likes you personally versus just, whatever the universe. And then add a couple of specific questions. Here's what I'm thinking. Add a couple of specific questions using a pendulum. So, and if you want to get really specific with on a specific question or something, give it a yes, no, and the pendulum might be really helpful. And then re-interview them every so often. So the thing
I do that as well.
The thing that
Dee, I'm just wondering, or Lynn, I'm wondering, are we making this too complicated? Why would we go to all these rounds? If you go to a lot of people around here who read anyway, or people who read, they have one deck, and the deck could be battered and old and faded, but they have one deck and they use it because that's the deck they live with, and that's the deck they use. So why are we interviewing decks? Why are we doing all this other work? Why not stick with the deck we've got, and just be with a deck, and that's our tarot deck, or maybe have 2 decks if you want. Maybe I sometimes found to have a relationship reading, one deck is kind of good or better than the other. But apart from that, to my mind, going to all this rigmarole, it's work.
Well, I think,
and is it worthwhile? And what are you achieving?
Don't you think though that if you buy a new deck, I mean, I guess the answer would be if you like buying decks, it would be nice to know who they are, what they're all about. Dee, do you have any? Can you answer her question? It's like, why bother, or why do it, or why have more?
As it's not so much as a bother, and I wouldn't specifically cut out a rainy day and start going through my decks and make it a chore like dusting your house. No, it's one of these things where I'm going to do a read, and I grab this deck and I say, "What are your strengths today?" and let it flip out a card. If it says it's soppy, if it's the Queen of Swords, okay, I may be interested. But if it says the Six of Cups, I'm not going there, because that's not what I was looking for. And if that's what flies out, I kind of position myself with that. But again, I have almost 200 decks, and many have been given to me or found at estate sales, things like that. So when I walk in and, like you said, you stand there, what pulls you? The ones that you learn with always pull. But then there's always that little trigger, because I'm a clarifier. Maybe I use that one as a clarifier and let that card fly and just work from there. I've got to keep it lighthearted. I got to keep everybody happy. It's my classroom. So that's how I interpret it. And I have those questions. I only use the ones that fit in my category at that time. Because I tell you, I do give a deck a timeout. There are times when it's not working. It doesn't want to be there. So I just put that to the side and put it in one of my little bags and wait for it another day. And I'm not a journaler. I do not journal.
So
it's all what comes to me.
Do you ask the question, what is your personality? Is that one of your questions?
The question isn't so much the personality, it's what can you tell me about? Do you have a specific, do you have a specific or important characteristic that you want me to know?
Okay, so
that's probably the first.
We're kind of
so there I go.
Okay, you're cutting out a little bit. That's all right. We'll
oh, sorry.
Okay, so listen, I'm working today. I'm doing my July zodiacs today, and I'm working with Stella's Tarot, and I love this deck. It's just a simple little deck, but this is what I'm using today. So if I were to just shuffle this deck up and ask the deck and say, listen, I want to know, I want to know, what you're all about, or what was the question you just asked? You just said, Dee, I can't remember. I want to know not your strengths and weaknesses, but
tell me about yourself.
Yeah, tell me about yourself. And then I'm going to pull the Four of Cups. The Four of Cups.
All right.
Okay. So it tells me, would this be just for today then? Is this telling me I'm not feeling it today?
It could last whenever you use it. You may just remember that deck said Four of Cups. That's kind of what the lane it's in. Especially if you use it often. This is how it feels right now. So then you go to the question, does it relate to that question that you're going to ask? Especially if you're reading for someone. Right. I have someone who wants to know if he should join a team, and I get something that says, I'm not real sure about it. Okay, let's try a different deck.
Ah, yeah, that would help. That would make a difference. I always pick the deck. I don't usually let other people pick the deck, but I remember Katrina used to she would have a dozen decks and let people pick the deck that they felt. Look at the cards and see what speaks to you, and and then she would use that deck. I always thought that was kind of interesting. Anybody have any? I'm kind of with you, Anne Marie, on I don't really, I kind of get a feel for when a deck is good with relationship readings, and I don't mean I just mean as far as when I believe the cards are spirit driven, and I think there are some cards that that spirit gets through to very well. And I think the more you know a deck, so the more you work with a deck, the more you know it. And the more you know that deck, you know what's, spirit knows what, what cards it needs to provide to you in order to get the message that it wants to get to you. And I just think that that's by trial and error. It's not necessarily by interview, but but I love watching Dee, because Dee does a lot of that interviewing stuff, and that's kind of fun. It's fun because you talk to your decks all the time, and I think that's interesting. What do you think, Yvonne? Anything from this conversation jump out and bite you?
Well, I think, I think if you have a deck that you understand and enjoy, that that's the one to stick with. I also think that it's cool to incorporate other decks, because that allows you to do that conceptual blending thing, where I mean, if you're really a true student of the conceptual blending, it's like the randomness, right? That's what it's all about. So, I mean, if you have your standard deck, like let's just say your, Marseille deck, there's not very much as far as visual images and all that. Your deck, and you also are using your intuition when you're interviewing, or when you're not interviewing, but when you're reading for someone. There's something coming across there, right?
Mhm.
But if you wanted to mix it up and just to see what else, I mean, you could have another deck on your table and reading. And when your client comes up, depending on, what their question is and how you feel, I mean, it might not be your true and blue regular deck that you use all the time. You might be compelled to use the other deck. And there, when you pull that, yeah, you could use the images on the deck to maybe speak to you or give you that other idea. It's like, because I mean, every deck, with the images, even if it's just something like, the Four of Cups, they're all going to look a little different, right? You
Right.
have a true meaning and understanding of what that card is.
Yes.
Right. But if you wanted to mix it up and just, see what other things come out, you could use other deck.
Mm-hmm.
And, are you still giving the client a true reading? Yeah, you are.
Mhm.
Because whatever message is coming through is going to come through no matter what deck you use. Right.
Mhm.
And you have your true understanding of what that particular card means.
Mhm.
So regardless of whether it's a crow or a chicken, or or just a
A
white
fairy.
card with a dot on it, you're gonna know. Because inside you, in your mind, you already have an understanding of what that card means.
Yes.
So is there a wrong or right? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just a matter of following your own intuition, and whatever your intuition is telling you to go with, that's what you go with. Having
Oh.
clients choose, like, from a deck of, different decks, I think that's kind of interesting,
Mhm.
because again, you already know what the cards mean, regardless of the images
deck,
on
yeah.
them.
And
Right?
it's true. I think that they pick because they like the color, or they like some of the pictures or whatever.
Mm.
But regardless if they know anything about tarot at all, whatever deck they put their hands on and ultimately hand over to you and say, yeah, I'd like to use this one. Beyond everything else, it's the energy. It's something they were drawn to that deck, subconsciously, not even realizing
Well, they were
because of the color of the pictures, but really it was the
well,
energy. So that's kind of interesting.
they were drawn to you in the first place,
Yes.
because they could have gone anywhere else to have anybody else read for them, so
Interesting.
basically I think that the cards are definitely a tool, but the human behind the cards, the one that's reading it, that's the one that's bringing the, dare I say, magic,
Well, getting back to this
the understanding of it.
interview
I like it.
piece, I think that for me, I think that asking the yes no questions. You know, do you like me? Do you want to work with me? Are you good at this? Are you good at that? Or, you know, let's say I'm, you know, I need quick reads. Are you going to provide me with quick reads? Are you whatever? I think things that can be answered in yes or no. I'd almost rather just set the deck in the middle of the table and use a pendulum to ask those, because I think it would be more direct. But when you're asking, but I would think for me personally, asking the questions of what are you good at? You know, the what questions and how questions. I think for those, it helps to, you know, ask the cards and let the cards tell you. But I think you can get, I would just think that with, you know, for basic, you know, are you good for love readings? Are you good for financial readings? Are you good for political readings? And, you know, it'd be interesting to do a pendulum and see if it says yes or no. You know, I kind of like straight answers. And I don't
That's
know.
interesting.
Sure.
You know, I don't always get straight answers. Anyway, what do you-
Maybe it
Go ahead.
might be helpful for someone starting off, rather than running out to buy decks. Maybe they're having difficulty with whatever deck they choose, and they're saying, oh, there might be an easier one. But maybe it might be easier for them just to decide to stick with a deck until they're comfortable and happy with it before they start looking at alternatives.
I agree
And
with
it
that.
might be easier. It might be easier for them, because I think if you rush in and you just, you know, this is not rather than just putting in the one you've got, any one that you've got, because any deck will work. Just whatever one you've got, if you like it at all, and there must be some reason why you have it in the first place. Something must have drawn you to it, pictures or color or something. Stick with that until you're happy with it. And then you can choose, then you can look at other pictures and decide, yep, I'm ready to branch out now. Maybe I'd like something
I
different.
concur with that.
Perhaps.
I concur with that, because what
Yeah.
happens
Mm.
when you're new at it, it's very confusing, and then you know, they're reading the booklets that are coming with, and every booklet is different. Yeah, stick to one. You know, go with the you know, the Rider Waite for starters, and once you feel that you know the deck or understand what the cards mean, then yeah, venture out. Why not? You know, there's lots out there.
Hmm.
I do have to
Mhm.
say that I think, you know, beyond the interview topic, I think that the more you get to know a deck, the more comfortable you are with the deck, the more it will work with you. You know what I'm saying? The more it will speak to you. So, Kate,
Mhm.
anything?
I agree,
to
yeah.
add?
Yes.
And I agree with that, you know, when people are starting out, I always recommend to use the Rider Waite Smith just because it's
Mhm.
such a broad topic. And I do believe that you should stick. Now, my collection is because I love art. And
Yes.
well, you know, most of my and what I love about a tarot deck first and foremost is it is one artist, usually one artist, unless it's collaboration deck, interpretation of the same 78 things, right?
Yeah.
And I love looking at how the Queen of Swords is represented through all these different artists'
Me
understanding.
too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Plus, I just have an addictive behavior. I'm just
Mhm.
addicted to decks.
well, I can support that addiction.
Yeah. Well, I think what it amounts to too is at that stage you're enjoying your work. You're enjoying the whole tarot experience. But first of all, you've got to learn it.
Yeah.
I agree.
And
I agree.
then get out there and enjoy all the different colors and different shades and all the different things. But stick with
Or
one
unless,
until you're comfortable.
Yvonne.
or unless you just like collecting, and you know, I think that's a great collection to have. You know, why not? You know, it could be baseball cards, but no, tarot cards. Tarot
One of the
cards.
things that Anne Marie brought up that I've said before was about the, you know, always seeing the Rider Waite Smith card in my mind's eye. My father was a car dealer, and when we kids were growing up, we all got cars off the used car lot, and we didn't get to choose them; they were chosen for us. And as long as all through high school, none of us kids were ever allowed to have an automatic transmission. My dad made sure we all got stick or standard transmissions. And when I asked him, why can't I have an automatic? He said, anybody can drive an automatic. He said, anybody can get behind the wheel and drive it. But he says, if you can drive a stick, you can drive anything the rest of your life. And I kind of like that for the Rider-Waite Smith is there are look at even Vincent Petici, my God. I mean, even, here's a guy that's an author, and a creator of a beautiful Marseille. And yet he uses Rider-Waite Smith to teach when he teaches, because there are so many teaching opportunities out there with the Rider-Waite Smith. There's so many articles, there's so many things online and videos, and you can learn on that. But once you learn that, you'll always know those meanings, and now you can branch out. And I'm like Kate, I just love seeing how different decks are represented, and things that I see in a deck that I don't see in the Rider-Waite. So kind of a different topic.
And do you know something, just on the same topic, when you're reading for people and they see the cards going down, sometimes straight away they see, there's the Dark King, or there's those little children playing, and something clicks straight away at cards, or they can tell you what that means for them. And now it might not be what you've got in your mind, but they identify with the pictures that are in the cards.
Right.
And that can actually set you up or get you on the right track as well, because that's what they're seeing, that's where they're at.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
For
this
sure.
has been great. I'm glad to know I'm not alone, that I'm not the only one that doesn't, get big into interviews. I always felt like I was not doing my due diligence, and I used to hide it by not talking about it, but I'm glad it came out in the open. I do not, interview decks like I probably should. And I think I probably do better if I.
And me neither.
Well, listen, next month, we'll be back same, last Tuesday. We're going to record this a little earlier, but we're going to, for people watching, we'll be back, the last Tuesday of the month, every month. And we're going to be talking about we've done some, like we did a naughty card last time. So I think we're going to do the King of Cups this time. I think he's kind of a confusing character, and what does he really stand for in our readings? And I think that might be the good thing. And then we'll do something a little different. And then Anne-Marie, then we're going to come back to your Knight of Swords, because I know that's one that you've been wanting to talk about. Anybody?
I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
I'm putting out June, or I'm putting out July zodiacs today. Anybody else doing anything? Kate, do you have anything coming out on your site?
I'm still working on my series on going through the deep dive of the major arcana. So looking at the major arcana archetypes and mythology, Greek and Roman, and I'm having fun with it, but it is a deep dive.
Yeah, and I don't see a lot of that out there.
Giving myself the space.
So that'll be a really interesting series, because I just don't see a lot of that out there.
And I'm personally, I'm doing some readings, but I'm not saying, because I am reading on the Russian war, et cetera, but I just don't feel like putting that energy out in the universe. So I keep them to myself.
Dee, are you working on anything in particular right now, or?
No, I'm just kind of laying low, building a deck. How about that?
Yeah, that's great. I know that when I was there last week, and I got a chance to be in Minneapolis and see you. I know you were saying that Tom said, all right, time to get rid of all these rocks and all this stuff. I know he was asking you to downsize your absolutely a phenomenal display. I mean, your whole home is like one big, reading room. It's great. It's like, ooh. Have you started working on that yet, or not?
No.
I told you, make a box for me if you do. So, Anne-Marie, you working on anything?
Not particularly now. I'm doing not so many readings, but what I'm doing on a personal note is I've come back to doing the 3-card draw per day.
Oh, that's good.
Just asking the cards, okay, what's coming into my awareness? What's likely to be coming into my awareness today? So I draw my 3 cards. I draw a card for spirit then, which I look at the end, and then I do a quick run through. Say, for instance, what did I get? Wait till I look. Yesterday. This is without trying to think too much. Say the Nine of Cups. Oh, let's see now. The King of Cups, Page of Swords. Say there was the Knight of Wands, the Page of Swords, and the King of Swords. So I just quickly say current defensiveness over an action in the past will result in an moving forward. Now, then I just leave it at that without inquiring too much about it, because that's what comes into my mind straight away, and then come back in the evening and see, was any of that relevant for my day, or how did any of that fit into my day?
That's pretty cool.
And I'm finding that very interesting now, because again, it's making me look again at some of the cards that I would have taken for granted. As saying the eight of Swords is coming up a lot, and it's coming up in slightly different ways. So now I'm beginning to see the card in different lights.
Oh, I think we're kind of losing her.
And I'm finding that very helpful and very, very relaxing and very nice.
Cool. Well, we're down to 1 minute left, I think. Yvonne, you got anything going on? What you working on esoteric wise?
Esoteric wise, well, let's see. I'm currently on the peninsula, so I'm in a very serene place where I can relax and read. And I'm checking out, I'm actually reading 3 books at one time.
Nice.
Woman after my own heart.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm checking out I'm visiting my psychic tarot again. It's the Aquarian deck. And also I've got this deck when we were in Chicago, the English Magic Tarot.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that was for me, wasn't it? Did I trade that?
Was it from you?
I'm
I
pretty
think
sure.
it was one of the trades. Yeah.
Yep, it was a
you.
trade. That was for me.
It's a cool deck.
Neat.
A very cool
Mm.
deck, and I've been looking at it, and so maybe I'll share more about that
next time. Yeah, I hate to cut y'all off, but
could I just say, look, this is what I'm with.
Can't see that.
This is my newest thing. It's Lenormand. I was thinking, so Mystical Lenormand. Love this. I've just
gotta
looked it up and I
go.
love it.
5 seconds,
Where's it gone to?
guys. Sorry about that.
Mystical Lenormand. Okay. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Yeah.
See you next
guys
time.
next time.
Okay.
Keep throwing those cards.
You too.